So I wanted to sit down and say, guys, obviously we're making a change. Patrick has left. I'm bringing in new people. Aradia is, of course, at the top of the list. She is going to be here on probably most of the episodes.
Also, hi guys, I'm your new regular voice. I'm going to be here a lot.
Right now, my plan in the beginning is to alternate between Aradia and Travis. Travis is my current roommate. He's a Wheel of Time fan. We talk all the time. We'll see how that works. And then mix in all the folks who have emailed me and volunteered. And I might even have you join in as a third, because I like having 3 people occasionally.
Totally.
And just have, 2 regular hosts joining me, and then just people dipping in and out, depending on... or, if you guys want to take a night off, I can always grab another.
Yeah. It'll be more of a patchwork do-si-do. It'll be fun.
It'll be great. And like I said, this is a great opportunity to just bring in more voices from more people. And like I said, for most people, I can just record Discord, so it shouldn't be a problem. As long as they're called into Discord, I should be able to record what they're saying. I'm not doing that with Aradia because she's been recording Broken Earth, which you need to go listen to, the Broken Earth Spoilers podcast, for a while. And she's done more than her fair share of editing of WoTSpoilers and Broken Earth. She's sort of been my backup when I've felt like crap. She's taken over a lot of the background work that needs to get done. So, if you're getting messages on social media, there's a good chance it's coming from Aradia these days, or me, but mostly Aradia. One of the things I want to go into is, Aradia's been, and I'm sorry I'm talking about you in the third person, even though you're right here. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
So anyway, you've been giving us feedback. You've been part of Discord since the very beginning. Your voice has been on this either directly or indirectly when we say Aradia says. So I'm so happy to have you on as a regular guest, and I shouldn't say regular guest, regular co-host.
It has been very surreal to go from being the only person I know who knows about Wheel of Time to a regular staple part of the community that got built around a podcast, to having my own podcast, to being part of the initial Wheel of Time podcast. This progression over the last 3 years has been rather surreal. I mean, I went and saw random dudes I met on the internet in a basement. That was a thing that happened.
And your boyfriend was very worried.
yeah, he was not impressed. And then I was going to fly to a freaking southern state and undergo a southern summer to get together with a bunch of nerds that I hadn't met. On the word of people I had met, I have really serious, tight friendships with people through this Discord that have gone through some shit as a result of meeting everyone. And it's all because of Wheel of Time. All because these random fucking dudes decided to make a thing, and now I'm in the thing, and it's very through the looking glass. I don't know. It's very weird. I'm honored to be here.
And I feel like the podcast has a life of its own, and it's sort of it's like any business, anything that sort of exists as an independent idea, people can come and go, but the thing will always be there. And for me, that's surreal because it feels like this thing is alive, right?
Yeah. It is.
It is. It's this living, growing thing that consumes people.
It is. It's changed people's lives in very, very profound ways, like continent habitation changing ways.
Yeah. Spousal changing ways.
Yeah. It's helped people get through hard times. It's kept us, grounded in happy times. It's a huge thing. And I was one of the people who was here when there was 13 active people in Discord, and we called ourselves the Chosen for Realsies.
Right. It didn't last all that long, but there was that brief period of time when the number of people in Discord was exactly 13, and it was kind of awesome.
Yeah. That was the thing. And it's very, very magical that it is so big now that I have been brought into it, and there's events happening around it, and people continue to make connections around it.
Speaking of events, I think a couple of people would kill me if I didn't shout out SpoilerCon.
Whoop, whoop.
SpoilerCon is coming up October 2nd and 3rd.
Yes.
Or is it third and fourth?
Second and third.
Second and third, thank you. And it will be online only. Registration is going to open the month beforehand. And we do ask that you register. There won't be any cost to registration. Donations will be accepted. We will probably donate to the same charity we gave to last year, which was Books for Prison. So all proceeds, including the raffle, will go to the charity.
Yeah. All the things go to the same thing.
And yeah,
it's going to be fun.
Right, and we've got an amazing guest lineup ready for you guys. Check out Instagram. We're going to be announcing those over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, just join in the registration. And we can't, it'll be mostly on Discord, and everything will be streamed to YouTube. So you'll be able to watch the whole thing on YouTube and interact on Discord or comment in YouTube. Do I have that correct, Aradia?
I believe so. Honestly, I tend to tune out for the tech conversations. I'm just like, smile and nod, smile and nod. I will show up and help run events.
when you register, you will get an email with all the relevant details. But yeah, it's gonna be a blast. There's gonna be trivia. There's gonna be costume contest. There's gonna be. I mean, the planning team has been working so hard.
It's obnoxious. Honestly,
it's obnoxious.
Guys.
Because they planned 2 cons. They planned an in-person con, and then that got canceled due to COVID. And we've had half a year to plan a remote con. And we've been thinking about things and planning things, and I think it's going to be a fucking amazing time. And I cannot wait to see how it goes down.
And we're going to be able to get people from around the world to participate. Even if you couldn't fly in, you can participate.
Right. And it does, in a lot of ways, expands the people who can be part of this, because physically flying in is kind of expensive.
Yeah, and we're making an effort to have events around the clock, so that way all time zones have a couple of events that are catered to their ideal hours. So some of us are going to be suffering hours to make sure that we get the whole globe.
And see, that's something I don't think about. The planning committee is just way better than I am at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've got auction items, we've got events within events, we've got time zone calculations. It's a circus.
Listen,
and it's about to be unveiled. There's a newsletter.
There are spreadsheets. There are many
so
spreadsheets.
Many spreadsheets.
Yeah. That's how you know it's going to be a good event, when the spreadsheets get out of control.
It's a lot, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Let's dig into the chapter.
Yes. Lord of Chaos, Chapter 9.
I just realized something for the first time. I have not thought about this yet. I don't know how we're going to do the read-ins.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. This is an awkward moment, because
it is.
I'm not the fox to your raven. It's not a thing.
I was like, oh, Patrick, read the... Okay, so you know what? Guess I am going to be doing the read-ins from now on. I will probably keep them shorter than what Patrick read, simply because I am less comfortable with reading out loud. And his voice was amazing, so we love listening to that. Yeah, he had a golden voice. So I will do my best, but we'll all miss the golden pipes.
Go for it.
All right, Chapter 9, Plans. And our symbol is the White Cloak Sunburst. You had these illuminators brought to Amador. Many would have flinched to hear such a cold tone from Patron Niall, but not the man standing on the inlaid golden sunburst before Niall's plain, high-backed chair. He exuded confidence and competence. There is a reason I have 2,000 of the children guarding the border with Terabon, Omirna. Terabon is quarantined. No one is allowed across the border. Not a sparrow would cross if I had my way. Omirna was the picture of what an officer of the Children of Light was supposed to be. Tall and commanding, with a bold, fearless face, a strong chin, and waves of white at his temples. His dark eyes seemed more than capable of surveying the harshest battlefield, undismayed, as indeed they had. At the moment, they seemed to indicate deeply considered thought. The white and gold tabard of a Lord Captain, anointed of the light, suited him. "My Lord Captain Commander, they wish to establish a chapter house here." Even his voice, deep and mellifluous, fit the image. Illuminators travel everywhere. It should be possible to slip agents among them easily. Agents welcomed into every town, every noble's manor, every ruler's palace. Supposedly, Abdel Omirna was a relatively minor member of the Council of the Anointed. In truth, he was the Children of the Light spy master, after a manner of speaking. Think of it. That's all I'm going to go with.
It's so funny how fucking confident he is.
Oh my god, Omirna is... Omirna gets his news from Facebook.
Right? Totally. Right? He buys all the memes. He reposts every meme he sees. He follows literally just memes only okay pages.
Right. He never Googles anything. He just forwards things without checking to make sure that they're verified.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to spend some time on Snopes. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he just needs to spend less time on YouTube conspiracy rabbit holes.
Right. Which, in this case, is bars, right? So Omirna is in bars, on the streets, going around, picking up all of these rumors, getting them completely wrong, except the ones he occasionally gets right, because even a broken clock is right twice. There's a couple in here that he gets right. They're absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the worst ones.
Yeah. The ones that Neil completely dismissed. Like the return, I believe, he gets the return of the Dr. Hawkwing's armies, right? And Neil's like, no, you didn't. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. But Omirna believes what's ever the most ridiculous. Like, that is how he gauges its truthfulness. So,
and in this case, the most ridiculous thing was true. Just so happens. Taviran.
Yeah, but I think that the interesting thing here in this chapter, so when you and I were talking before yesterday, I was like, oh, this is the chapter where Niall gets stabbed. It's not the chapter where Niall gets stabbed. But because I was expecting that the whole time I was reading it and making my notes, I kept wondering if he was already going to get stabbed. Because this whole chapter is about putting Omirna up as this doofus that can't do anything right, and look at how silly he is, and let's discount him. Let's assume that he just stays in his lane and never thinks for himself and is totally not a threat. Like, Niall thinks of him that way.
Totally. And this is setting him up to be manipulated, right? It's showing how dumb he is. This is Jordan saying, hey, here's a dumb character who's easily manipulated, who believes anything. And then when we flash forward and he does the murder, we're like, oh, Valda clearly manipulated him into killing Patron Niall.
Yeah, and I wonder if Omirna's has already been co-opted by that conspiracy, or if the whole conspiracy is more short-lived than that. Because I feel like Omirna's really leaning into Niall's assumptions about him. I feel like he is.
Right now, I think he's just disgruntled that Niall's not giving him the time of day.
You don't think the conspiracy started yet?
No, because I think, honestly, like, it didn't happen. It happened so quickly, right? Omirna believes everything. So all it probably took was, like, Valda being like, yo, guess what?
That's a good point. He'd be a terrible long-term conspirator.
Terrible, yeah. He was literally just a dog on a leash waiting to be released. And I don't think Valda... He may have been prepping him subtly, but I don't think he's in on any sort of conspiracy.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think Valda is already, like, thinking about it?
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't... Yeah. Yeah, because Valda's a planner.
He's not very subtle, but he's definitely a planner and smart.
Yeah.
He takes the straightest route forward, He wants to be the Lord Captain Commander. Well, you got to kill the existing one.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, okay, yeah. Omirna is definitely one of those things you pull in at the last second. That makes sense. But this chapter really sets you up to never think that Omirna would ever be a threat.
Totally. But, it also, you look at him and he gets disgruntled during this meeting. Niall kind of mocks him, and he kind of, like, stomps out. He's like, fine.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Niall dismisses him, but he really shouldn't have.
And Omirna thinks he's the spy master. So
totally.
To have his spy mastering thrown aside so callously is, yeah.
It's a real insult.
Yeah.
So I really do think that this meeting leads to him being rebellious and angry, which leads to probably having a conversation with Valda. Valda sees an opening. Valda manipulates him. Neil gets stabbed.
Right. Yeah, maybe Asuna was the one that first recruits him, but either way, yeah, that basic order of events. Yeah, I can see that, because it's a big deal. I mean, Omerna knows, or Omerna believes in something as radical as, like, basically an alien invasion on the western coast. Like, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And Niall does not believe him?
The ghosts of the people who crossed the sea that can't be crossed are coming back to attack, and they have Aes Sedai chained and use shadow spawn. That doesn't make any sense. There's no way.
Yeah.
No. There's no way a giant force appeared out of nowhere with Aes Sedai, and that's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense.
Even the Aes Sedai say it's ridiculous. That's how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. What information do you have today? What useful information? That is your function, not providing fireworks. So he goes through this whole rigmarole about getting spies into the Illuminators Guild. That, well, you can't get a spy into the Illuminators Guild. They marry their own. It's like inbred. Like, good luck.
So, like, why do you think he was trying to get fireworks, Illuminators? Like, what do you think was the game there?
Ooh, pretty.
You think? You think it was just for the pretty?
I think Omirna is just dumb enough that he just kind of thought he's doing it for the king, right? But he's doing it to please the king.
And I really want Omerna to have more complicated motivations, and you're just really shooting that down.
Omirna is an open
book written for very small children?
Yes, I was going to say
I'm quoting Umbrella Academy, guys. Yes, I am.
Pause. Season 2 of Umbrella Academy?
Yeah, I'm only on episode 2, but that line's in the trailer.
Then I will say no more than I thought it rocked the socks off of season 1.
Good, because I barely started watching it again. Anyhow, I absolutely adore that line and the character that delivered it. So
no, the whole second season is, for me, the first season was moments where it was awesome, and then it was kind of awkward and cringy, and it like sort of went back and forth between those two. And second season just eliminated all the awkward, cringy stuff.
Oh, good.
And it's just awesome from start to finish.
Excellent.
So, if you have not watched, and it's a fun time, there's time travel, there's, it's a fantasy, right? It is a fantasy story. It will never be sold that way, but yeah.
With Ellen Page. I mean, what more do you need? Ellen Page is in it.
I have enjoyed almost everything she's been in that I've seen her in.
Right?
Yeah,
I haven't seen everything she's in, but
No.
everything I have seen, I have loved.
Right. She picks good movies. But yeah, so Martin Stepaneos, he's got a bit of a story. He is currently, he's in Ilion. So he's under the thumb of Samael.
And he's going to reestablish himself a little bit, start to take a little bit of his independence back, and then vanish. Right.
And so the vanishing actually is him, you could say fleeing, you could say being kidnapped by the Tower Aes Sedai. Mm-hmm. They make a deal with him, and basically he says, get me the hell out of here. But He kind of also gets kidnapped. It's like it's kind of against his will.
Yeah. And Balwar knows he's talking to Aes Sedai and has agreed to something, but doesn't know what. We know it's extradition.
And so Egwene, basically says, when she goes back to the White Tower and takes over, she says, you're not a prisoner anymore, because I don't think he was allowed to leave. You know how the White Tower is. They don't let you leave if they want to control you. But he says he basically gives up the crown, and he's seen at the signing of the Dragon's Peace, and that's his last sighting.
Yeah, he literally gets out 2 days before Rand attacks Ilion.
Yeah.
Which also means that he arrives, and my research indicated he also arrives in Tar Valon on one of the last ships before the siege closes down Tar Valon. So he gets out right before Rand attacks Ilion, and then gets in right before Egwene attacks Tar Valon.
I wonder who sat down with Jordan and was like, okay, we got to figure out this timeline.
Right?
Do you think it was Maria who was like, all right, what happened to Matt and Stepaneos? When did he get out? When did he get back? Yeah.
I mean, probably Jordan already knew that the whole time. That's probably the skeleton he built the whole plot around. Matt and Stepaneos.
The linchpin of the Wheel of Time. Matt and Stepaneos. But it's funny, for such a minor, he's barely mentioned. He's not but I remember him as being because everyone's looking for him, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this big mystery, what happened to Martin Stepaneos? And it's like, oh, he was traveling.
Yeah, the entire time he was just like hoofing it by boat.
It's like, oh, okay, well, that's less interesting. But he, for some reason, he is one of those nobles that always really, that name sticks in my head.
Well, he's really important because Ilion is one of the major, like, Rand really coming into taking a crown sort of things, right? Like, it's a really big crown for him to get.
Yeah.
So who wore the crown before is this weird, like, elephant-shaped hole in the room. And that influences a lot of the politicking and a lot of the everything to do with, like, who's under the Forsaken's control and who's under the White Tower's control and who has an army. Like, the fact that he's not there ends up really warping a lot of people's plans.
No, and that crown is so significant. I mean, just the Jesus allegory, right? Like, that is the crown of thorns.
Mm-hmm.
That they put on his head, right? That is... You know, we've got the wound in the side, we've got the rebirth after 3 days, we've got a crown, a laurel crown. Like, it is just almost on the nose. Like, Rand is Jesus, right? Like, it's definitely making that. You know, he's also Thor. He's also, like, this is the thing, like, Jordan does such a good job of being like, our legends are based on them, but we mixed it all up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, our Thor is based a little bit on Rand, a little bit on Matt, and a little bit on Perrin.
Right, and, like, throw in some King Arthur, and, like, you know, yeah, it just goes on and on and on. But, yeah, that's the first crown he gets offered rather than taking. It's a very important crown, even though he does gather crowns, like, obnoxiously a lot of crowns. So many crowns.
And that's when he goes from King Rand to Emperor Rand, right? Mm-hmm. He's no longer ruling a few nations, he is ruling... he's not a king of one or two, or, like, he's not just sort of... He's actually, like, in charge of a huge chunk of the Westlands, right? Ilion, Andor, Cairhien, he's got, that's, like, the land on the west side of the world.
Right.
It's like...
It's kind of a lot of land.
And that's the whole prophecy. The west and the south must be as one, the north and the west must be as one. Sorry, the east and the south must be as one, the north and the west must be as one. And that's the Sean Chan end up taking about half of it, and Rand takes the other half, and they have to make the treaty between the two. But that prophecy refers to Rand only takes half the land. And he does most of it, honestly, by the end of Book 6. He really doesn't take... Does he take anything else after that? Maybe Eredomon?
I mean, yeah, there's only so many crowns to scoop up, and then everyone's just like, no, we're friends. I'm totally a vassal lord. That's fine. We're fine. It's fine.
It's like when you start playing Monopoly and you go around the board the first time and there's all these, like, open things and you just snatch up as many as you can, and then everybody's got their property, and then you got to battle it out. It's like Rand and the Forsaken were, like, just had this moment to, like, okay, they're all down. Snatch up as many as you can. Okay, now we get to play.
I'm playing Monopoly. Yeah, it's true, though. It's totally true.
I mean, they use a chess analogy and a Go analogy all the time, so we might as well throw Monopoly in there. Really get the classics.
That's true. Legend fades to myth, and capitalism is long forgotten. As a demon baby.
God, can we please get to a point where capitalism is long forgotten?
I will hop through to that portal world right now.
And that is not the Wheel of Time world, because they certainly buy things with coins.
I think that they have a lot of different economies, and it's kind of a nation by nation calculation that you need to make.
But it's all in the gold
Shara,
standard.
you probably just, like, glare at people, and depending on how few tattoos you have, the better, you know.
Right. But that's all. Well, that's all. I was gonna say communism, but it's more like fascism.
Yeah, we really just don't know about how the economy of Shara works at all. It's really just, we can't even evaluate it. We know how they do power, but we don't know how they do economy. Different kind of power.
Lords, we get this line, Lords in Shinar, Arafel, and Kandor were taking advantage of the Blight's quiet to rebel. That rebellion is them deciding to seek out Rand to fulfill the prophecy and punch him in the face.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, Niall is sitting there thinking that the timing of the fall of the Stone of Tyr and the disquiet in the Borderlands is the fact that those things happen so closely together. He thinks is proof that the Aes Sedai are colluding to manufacture a false dragon. I think it's Huron.
Yes.
The timing of Huron leaving Falm and getting back to the Borderlands by the time that Rand has, like, freaked out over the winter and then done the Dragon Reborn and brought down the stone. the timing works out if I'm rough estimating correctly. But Niall, of course, can't know that because how do you account for a sniffer who's obscenely loyal to this actual dragon?
Right. Well, and he has no idea about the prophecy, right? That's the whole thing that, like,
right.
They don't tell anybody that's why they're, they Huron comes up and says, hey, we've got the dragon reborn. And like, well, we have this prophecy that says we have to prove it, just the four of us. And we're not allowed to tell anyone because the prophecy says so. So we got to take everybody and get out of here. But people are like, why the fuck are you getting out of here? You're the Borderlanders. And so it's a rebellion. It's a fight or whatever it is. It's just like this weird thing where no one really knows why. They just have to take it on faith, which the Borderlanders can do.
Right. And the Blight's been quiet.
Rand gets the North kind of for free.
Yeah.
All he has to, he just has to answer the question at the right time.
Yeah. But yeah, the Blight's been quiet and everyone's on edge, and then a bunch of the subordinate lords are being told, like, just hold everything together, and I'm gonna go off and do a mysterious mission and also prepare for the end of the world, but, like, don't make a big deal out of it. Like, it makes sense that you say that to several thousand people across your nation. You're gonna end up with a few fistfights that turn into small battles, right? So that makes a lot of sense. But I think that Niall is attributing Aes Sedai to Huron. Man, that must have been a trip for Huron that day. He shows up, delivers the news, and 40 hours later, he's in an entourage headed off to another country because, we are now marching to the last battle. That's happening. Yeah,
I wonder how long it took them to get together. Probably not long if I know Borderlanders.
Yeah, well, I think when we see them make the pact, whatever her name is, whose POV we're in at the time, she thinks about the timing of all of them having had to get there all sneaky-like. And it's I think 6 weeks for the one who was farthest and 3 weeks for the one who was nearest or something like that. It's pretty quick because they're sneaking with an entourage. Mm-hmm. So it's, horseback quick, but quick. I don't know. I'm not good with these conversions.
Sure. No, yeah, I kind of hand wavy. That's one of those things where that takes a whole nother separate read to make sure you get the timeline exactly right. Yeah. And even then, it's fuzzy in some places. I want to talk a little bit about Omerna's sort of theories.
Yeah, I have a nice table of the truths and falses.
Oh, well, then why don't you go ahead and hit me?
Oh, dear. Okay, so I've got kind of two columns. The news as Omerna sees it, and then the news as Balwer sees it, kind of item by item. So Omerna sees Matt and Stipaneos is ready to join the children. Balwer's like, nah. We've got the whole Samael thing. Omerna thinks that Rand has clearly stopped expanding the way that Omerna predicted. He's like, oh, yes, that didn't happen.
Right.
And Balwer's like, I don't know why it's not happening, but it's not for some obvious military reason. It's some mysterious reason.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you sort of have to sit and he's planning to go after Samael, so it's not like he's not planning to expand. He's just gathering his forces before he attacks Ilion. And
as I recall, Rand's not really telling anybody his plans at this point, so it totally makes sense that Balwer is clueless.
The thing is, he's trying to make it obvious that he's gathering forces, because he's trying to fool Samael, right? Mm-hmm. So he's not saying anything, but the gathering of forces is obvious and blatant, and it will become more blatant. It's probably too early for that to have been noticed and that information to have gotten to Omerna. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or Balwer.
Right. As for the Borderlands, I've got that Balwer knows that Bashir is in Caemlyn with perhaps as many as 15,000 horsemen, which is half what the rumors say, versus Omerna saying the Borderlands are totally gonna easily be brought to heel and come to our side. Bashir, Balwer's like, no, Bashir has 15,000 horsemen hanging out with the Dragon Reborn. I don't know what's up with that, but
people are saying that the Borderlanders are going to be empty. People are saying,
yeah, and right, and then also he totally understands that these are not minor rebellions; these are serious struggles for the soul of the Borderlands that are happening. Next, I've got. So Omerna thinks that Mirandy, Altara, and Gildan are all super ready to fall in line and make alliances, and the Prophet is totally not a threat. Everything's fine. Balwer is thinking the Prophet has only stopped advancing because his mobs are happy looting and consolidating power where they are for the time being, and all of the rulers of those relative nations are just dithering over the allyship because they're just terrified, and they're like, do I out of the frying pan into the fire? This is not a great choice for me right now. It's totally not a settled issue. Balwer is just such a skeptic. I love Balwer so much.
Yeah, and he's the only one who gets anything right. Neil gets some of the facts right, but he comes to the wrong conclusions at the end of them. He's like Elida in that way, where Elida has all the facts, and they've both been touched by Fain.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget
they both
that.
have very similar, and then as Metal Datura is pointing out, like, it's the climate change denying thing. It's the same kind of bullheaded, my explanation makes sense, and I can't take in enough data to see a different way. It's the same flavor. It's climate change denier. It's Fain. It's everything.
He can't accept that the dragon is reborn and the last battle is coming.
Right.
In the same way that a climate change denier can't accept that carbon dioxide is warming up the earth and the heat death of our society is coming unless we do something. Right? Like, those are such big ideas and such scary ideas that you'd rather believe a conspiracy among everybody to fool you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise your world is ending.
Yeah, the whole, like, nobody's in control. It's scarier than the lizard people are in control. Lizard people are comforting compared to nobody.
Right. And Neil thinks, the Aes Sedai are pulling the strings from the background. He thinks somebody is in control. He thinks he's playing, and it's really like, part of why he messes up is he doesn't take random chance into account. He doesn't think anything can be random chance. And so therefore, like right here, Omirna is saying Tarvalon and murdered King Galdrian to deliberately set off the civil war in Kyrian. And I'm like, nope, that was Tom.
And it wasn't to set off a civil war. It was to avenge the death of his lover. Like, it wasn't a conspiracy at all.
No, it was one guy going fucking rogue because his lover got killed in a stupid legal thing.
Yeah. It's so much more chaotic and short-sighted than Omirna can handle believing.
And I love here, he's like, Neil's thinking to himself, had he waited too long? Let Althor grow too powerful? No, it's the children that are wrong.
Right.
And that works on a couple of levels, actually.
Sure.
At this point, like, do you think the White Cloaks would be any threat to Rand himself, much less Rand and the Aiel and the, like...
No.
Like, exactly, like, we see what happens to a non-channeling army at the end of this book, right?
Yeah.
It's like running into automatic machine gun fire. You're just turning to mincemeat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
The entire premise of the children thinking that they can control a world of people that can blow shit up with their minds is just like, have you seen the world you live in? I'm sorry. In what world does a sword beat the power?
In a world where you can take someone by surprise with an arrow. That's really, like, they're just, they're ambush cowards. Like, that's it. It's the only effective thing. Didn't they say, like, they've never actually killed an Aes Sedai? They'd, like, dug up a body and hung it? They'd never hung an Aes Sedai.
They'd never hung an Aes Sedai. They killed an Aes Sedai once, but they hung her corpse. She was already dead by the time they had all of that set up.
You can't hang an Aes Sedai. If she's awake, she's gonna stop you.
Unless you have Forkroot tea, which apparently wasn't discovered until last week. Which I find so fucking unlikely. Like, I'm sorry, you have perfectly effective birth control tea, and you didn't find Forkroot and spread that knowledge around the whole world. Like, I'm sorry, this is bullshit.
I'm willing to bet the knowledge is there, just in pockets, and people keep it to themselves. Because channelers don't want anyone else to know, and you won't really discover that Forkroot tea works on channelers unless you are one.
Yeah.
And if it randomly knocks a girl out, they're like, I don't know, this, even though she could channel, nobody knows that because nobody's training them.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, but it feels like oversight. I'm not satisfied by it.
Yeah. No, and the one thing, the one argument I would say is it could be a rare plant growing only in a specific place. And we see Nynaeve not know about a lot of plants. Sometimes they're under a different name, but sometimes they're completely different plants, and she knows, like, everything about the medicine in her location. So if it was a local plant in one area that, only a few people ever tried, and none of them happened to be channelers or potential channelers, how would you know? It's just a tea that makes you slightly sleepy.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's super rare to that spot, which I don't really buy given the way that the Shanshan swing into production overnight.
Fair, but once Sean Chan are very effective at factory producing. So they go into the area, get all the seeds, immediately plant them. If it's fast growing, we know that flowers can be pretty fast growing, and God knows there's enough heat, irrigation.
And actually, the timeline is right.
Yeah.
Because Mac is the building dropped on him, and that's when the Sean Chan properly show up. And when we next see him, it's been long enough for him to heal almost all the way. That's totally long enough for a fast-growing herbaceous crop. Actually.
Right, and the Mikura woman was taken prisoner in that raid and gave that up right away to save herself.
I can buy this. If it's the region that it will grow really well in, the timeline is close enough, I'm willing to hand-wave it for how little I understand about plants. Oh, and we've actually got a plant person in Discord talking to us.
Yes.
Hi, Ogier.
So I'm going to read this word for word because I don't fully understand it. Herbaceous plants still have phenology, and it's growing in a region with snow in the winter. I understood some of those words.
I don't understand what they meant in that order.
I'm guessing what he's saying is flowering plants still have a internal clock.
Seasons. Yes.
He agrees with me. Okay, translating Ogier to human often takes a little bit of interpretation.
Yeah. So to
from
get
the long-winded version of it.
To
Neil
get a
is the
plant to
perfect
grow.
Ogier. Yeah. Neil, you are actually an Ogier.
It's true. I've met him in person. He's actually an Ogier.
I've never met a person with a lower pitched voice, first of all. Honestly,
that's super true.
He's about the right height, and he loves plants and books. Mm-hmm. It's just the voice alone is totally.
And he comes from the land of the original hobbits, so it's basically a done deal.
Yeah, he's got that English accent. So, which I think we're gonna see in the TV show. We're gonna see British/Australian accents, from what I understand.
Oh, really? I am given how bad RJ was with linguistics, I am very interested to see what kind of production planning is going into the accents.
I heard a line that Rafe was encouraging the actors to use their own accents and come up with stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. But I'm fairly certain he's not going to make them all put on a American accent, right? Everyone in that show.
Well, that's good.
Everyone else in that show, everyone is New Zealand, Australia, England. Nobody has an American accent. There are no American actors in the show, as far as I can tell.
So is the Two Rivers going to be Australian sounding? I want this so much. But does that mean that the boys are going to have to learn how to have Aussie accents?
Yeah. I mean, British or Aussie, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure even you and I are going to be able to tell the difference.
That's true, yeah. Like I said, we'll find out. We will find out. Someday.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
If COVID hadn't happened, we would probably be seeing trailers and getting ready for the first episode and viewing parties right now. And I kind of feel robbed.
I feel ways about that.
Now, I know many people have suffered many worse things, and, there's the whole wedding and all that kind of crap that people have, been unable to get married or had marriages, ceremonies ruined, which is way more significant. But you delayed my wheel of time again.
We all suffer in our own way.
Yes.
As for the remainder of my notes on the comparing rumors, I just have a grab bag of absolute nonsense for Omyrna, and then a couple of interesting facts that Balwer has collated, knowing that they're significant, but doesn't have any real connections for, which is that the Ogier are meeting between steadings, the Seafolk are clearly upset about something, Rand can travel, and Salidar is putting out a story about the Red Aja and Logain. Balwer has no interpretation for any of these things, which I appreciate, but he does bring them all to Niall's attention. And I don't even feel like we need to talk about what Almyrna has, because it's just a bunch of bullshit.
Other than he gets the fact that Arthur Hawkwings came back correct, which is just...
And he's totally heading up a witch hunt, like an inquisitional witch hunt, that has killed over 100... He has tortured over 100 people, killed over 2, at least 2, and is deporting refugees as fast as they can be found. And he's very proud of himself, and we should all boo at him because none of that is shit to be proud of.
I glazed right over that. I forgot how much of a horrible person he was.
Yeah, 2 women have been killed for being witches, and 100 have been tortured, proving the worth of the patrols. It's like, you are witch hunting really hard, and I hate you, and I hate your guts. And also, I had a note. He thinks the Stone of Tyr was an inside job. He completely believes the Stone of Tyr was an inside job. And I find that really funny. He's
the Aiel and Rand were inside of it. That's true.
I mean, yes, but he is like a total Stone of Tyr truther.
I noticed Balwer mentions the army gathering in Tyr, so clearly he's seen the army of Rand. I said there may not be enough time for them to see it. Balwer has.
Oh, okay. Oh, also, Noah also thinks Swan hasn't been deposed, and that Rand is dying, and he believes in bubbles of evil. He's seeing people bursting into flames and nightmares walking, and that is thrown out there as absolute bullshit, but bubbles of evil.
Yeah, no, he believes the bubbles of evil, that's right.
Not the explanation, obviously, but he believes in the events.
There's a lot of internal monologue about Niall. I really love the interaction between Balwer and Niall, and... You know, like this quote, like, of course he would have served any master as well as Niall. And we're like, yeah, Perrin, you know? And, like, he just wants someone who takes him seriously and listens to him and uses the information for the right reasons. And, you know, Balwer's been serving Niall for a long time, and I have to wonder if he's not seen Niall slip because of Padden Fain. And that maybe he doesn't believe in Niall as much. But one of the reasons Balwer fucking hates the White Cloaks is because he hates Valda for killing Niall.
Right. I don't think... As we see in this section, he advocates for torturing Morgase to achieve Niall's ends.
Yes, but just because he's practical.
But that's what I'm saying, is I think he's still fully committed to Niall. He's not really worried about Niall at this point, aside from his, like, you know, potentially getting assassinated. But I think he's still fully committed because I think it's interesting, honestly, that he is like, oh yeah, press Morgase. Like, you really need to do what you need to do. And then later when he knows who Morgase is when he's with Perrin, and he never once even demands a price to hold that knowledge. Never once. He is the weirdest, like, I like him, but he's also kind of a psycho.
I think of him as just a little autistic. Like, he
maybe
that he doesn't really get people, and so, like, someone says, "Hey, I need to get some information." He's like, "Well, you know, you could torture them more. That would work." You know, while looking at his paper, like, it's just a suggestion. And he just has no. I don't think he has a lot of empathy. I think he's very good at collating facts. I think he likes to work for someone who takes him seriously and is insightful. And I do think he is happier when Perrin is helping people and making things right. Like, I think he likes that. But yeah, I think I think Balwer maybe doesn't really see faces all that well.
Because he's not, like, remorseful towards Morgase. He's not fearful of her or resentful of how he never expects her to be resentful of him. I mean, not that she would know that, but, like, that he suggested it. But, like, he never even thinks about it or is bothered by it. He's just like, it was practical. Whatever. But then he doesn't use that in a selfish way. So yeah, I think you might be right with he's more on the spectrum than straight up broken. That's probably a good interpretation of him, because I really like Balwer. I really like him. I don't want him to be a psycho.
I guess I'm giving a bit of an excuse. Right. It's hard. It's like he's working for psychos, but does that make him a psycho?
He enables them. He suggests more effective ways for them to do their thing.
Right. But also, you know, and part of me also wants to say, well, the White Cloaks are doing more evil than they used to, but the White Cloaks were always dicks. So, you know, I can't really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to, like, go with Padden Fain influenced Niall to be worse, but that's hard to tell, because Niall has always been terrible.
Yeah. So Perrin's a bit of a redemption arc for Balwer. Let's just go with that.
Oh, totally. Well, and honestly, that's what Perrin is a redemption arc for everybody who joins him. The Shan Chan, the White Cloaks, like that. He is the forgiveness that all of those people need to come. And that's why he's able to bring so many different societies together.
Yeah, I mean, he even could have been a redemption arc for Aram if he hadn't been a complete fucking dickwad about the entire process. Like, that potential was there. He very much offers that. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like
He just got sucked in the Prophet.
Right, because Perrin didn't take advantage of the opportunity. But, like, Aram needed saving from his choices, right? And Perrin could have done that.
And so the Prophet could have, too. There is a point, I think he's insane, but Perrin gives him plenty of chances to not be a crazy mob leader and actually support Perrin and Rand and, like, help. Like, Perrin gives him a lot of chances.
Yeah.
And honestly, Perrin doesn't even kill him. Fail does, right? Like, so yeah, it's, Perrin almost always gives people a chance, except the Shido.
Right. But because they did the one thing that Perrin cannot forgive. Perrin is really forgiving until you cross that line, and then it's nope.
No, and that led to him abusing the axe, which led to him throwing it away, and that was, his whole plot line is based around the fact that, like, he didn't forgive the Shido.
Yeah, a lot of his biggest mistakes are rooted in that. Yeah.
All right, back to the White Cloaks. Well, I guess Perrin's a natural place to go with the White Cloaks because they do end up together.
Yeah, it's yes. This is building the White Cloaks up to be broken down, to be scooped up. It's a thing.
Balwell reports Rand in a bunch of different cities on the same day, and which anyone would realize means he can travel.
Mm-hmm. Right, but again, it's like lacking a mechanism. Balwer's just like, I have facts and I don't know what to do about them.
He's like, the only way I know I could do that is lookalikes. So there must be just 3 lookalikes.
Right, totally.
There's no such thing as traveling.
I also like how they concoct a fairly correct hypothesis about what happened to the tower, even though neither of them know a whole lot about what's going on. Like, Niall's hypothesis that fits the facts together for his own ends is actually pretty freaking accurate. That the tower broke and the Black Aja is driving the show.
That's true, yeah. I didn't really think about that. I was like, he's not right. But yeah, no, in a lot of ways he is. In the same way that Suan hit kind of close to home with... I always think Suan hit close to home with her lies about the Red Aja. Mm-hmm. I think that obviously Niall hit close to home with his lies about the Aes Sedai.
Yeah, right for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously, his whole concept of spinning it to be like, oh, they're trying to repent because they recognize the Black Aja's in control is completely wrong. They're dealing with a usurper. It's a political thing, blah, blah, blah. It's not nearly as clear cut as clearly the Black Aja's in control. That's not what the Saladar Aes Sedai are thinking, but...
No, but we know Alviarin is pretty much...
the Black Aja is in control.
Yeah, is in control, because Alviarin's in control, and she's Black Aja, so there's that whole, like, oh, yeah, but she actually is, right? So...
Yeah, it's hilarious to me how right and wrong he is at the same time. And I also think it's interesting how he is, like, unwilling to attack Saladar, and is looking for excuses to justify why he hasn't attacked Saladar here, because he knows that the children would want to take out the group if they knew that the tower was truly broken. So he's, like, trying to figure out how to spin it for, like, what he sees as good ends. Like, greater good, because obviously most of the children are going to think, well, the only good Aes Sedai is a dead Aes Sedai, right? End of the day.
No, and Neil talks about how, like, this comes very close to treason, some of the things he's suggesting, because, like, if you get beyond the idea that the only good Aes Sedai is a dead Aes Sedai, well, then all of a sudden you get to the point where you can manipulate them, work with them, and for some White Cloaks, like, I do think Asanawa, they would consider that treason.
Well, and yeah, you'll notice in this thought that he's having about treason, he names the people who assassinate him, ultimately. Valda and Asunawa. Like, those are the two guys that bring together the assassination plot, and he's actively thinking of them when he's like, some children would not approve of this. And it's like, you think?
Do we know Asawana? How do you say that?
Asunawa.
Asanawa. Whew, getting my syllables mixed up. Do we know he was involved in the plot? I thought it was just Valda.
Well, he walks in on Valda standing over Omerna and is like, I know what story you want me to tell. Give me the right answer to my question, and I will support you when you go to take his place. So I assume that they had a bit of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink ahead of time. But they at least do over Omerna's body and over Niall's body. So
there was at least that post-death conspiracy, even if there wasn't a pre-death conspiracy.
Niall knows who would have it out for him. He very much knows who's okay with him dying.
The guy who wants his place and the guy who's opposite him on the questioners.
And, like, ultimately, the two short-sighted sadists that are at the top of the system that are much more okay with being evil and are much more okay with a short-sighted ends justify the means. Like, they are much more aligned. He has this God's eye view, and he thinks he's a good guy. He's obviously a totally terrible person. He thinks he's a good guy. Valda and Asunawa have no such compunctions. They're like, nah, I have my goals, and those are all the goals I need.
Yeah, the ends justify the means.
End of the day. No problem.
How does Asunawa die? I remember Valda gets killed by Galad.
Asunawa, I believe, dies after... He dies in the coup when Galad is tied up, and Trom and the others stage a coup.
That's off screen?
So it's off screen. And yeah, Galad gets angry when he's presented with Asunawa's head, and he's like, God damn it, I told you guys not to do that. And they're like, but this guy really deserved it. And he's like, fuck, fine, be that way, but don't do it again.
I was like double checking that on the wiki. I was like, yep, you are right on, as always, Aradia. The living wiki.
I have my moments. I really liked it was like Couladin. I kind of wished we saw Asunawa die on screen. It was very backhanded how we learned that he died, but yeah.
But at the same time, that is something that Jordan does. Like, he kills, and he's not that big of a character. He's kind of a minor character.
Yeah, no, he's a bogeyman. He's a very one-dimensional villain, for sure. Okay, the children and the questioners are a subset of the children. They're just the secret police of the children.
Right.
They pretend that they're higher and different, but they're supposedly a subset.
But I imagine, like, to join the questioners, you start off as a regular child, and then you, like, are promoted into the questioners.
Right. And so then there's this weird kind of, to borrow from Broken Earth, there's kind of this, like, guardian fulcrum sort of thing going on, but less dramatically opposed. Yeah,
I'm trying to think, like, secret police is the best analogy I can think of. Except they're not that secret.
And they don't police the children, for the most part. They police others. They work with the children. Because, like, the children will be like, I found a dark friend, and I'm gonna give you to the questioners.
And I guess the questioners don't go out in the field, either.
Right. They wait to have their packages delivered.
Exactly. I think Niall thinks he was convinced that Asanawa became a questioner just so he wouldn't have to actually fight an enemy face to face. That all of his enemies would be strapped down to a table.
Asanawa would be directly subordinate to Niall, but, like, directly subordinate isn't the same thing as scared of, right? If you have your own little secret army of stabby stabs, you can be like, yeah, I obey you, but, like, subtext.
Yeah, I was never really sure about the entire... He never goes deep into the structure of the Children of the Light's hierarchy, as far as I can tell. I don't really know how the High... I don't really know how the High Inquisitor... I would assume he's directly subordinate to Lord Commander. He's supposed to obey the Lord Captain Commander.
Yeah, that's what I would assume, but yeah. RJ seems to be happy to just hand-wave that and be like, the evil guys conspire and threaten each other and lie, and there's a lot of torture.
Yay, torture.
Yeah, I'm so glad that part's not on screen for the most part.
That is definitely a fantasy thing, right, of the day, is like, there was a lot of torture.
Yeah.
In the books, in books.
Yeah.
It's like a character building thing that, like, it gives you sympathy and makes you like, oh, these characters have gone through stuff. And then, like, I feel like a bunch of authors tried to one-up each other on how bad they could make the torture scenes.
Yeah. It's like, enough with the murder porn. It's gross.
Yeah. And that led to George R.R. Martin, and Martin led to all the other stuff. Like, there's so many books out that I just don't enjoy that much because they're kind of murder porn that are taking off of Martin. Like, I'm just not...
Yeah.
I think I don't like Joe Abercrombie a lot because a lot of his stuff is just bloody and gory, and, like, it's not that he doesn't tell a good story. I'm not there for the gore, you know?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, before we leave Niall, so we see them composing the 4 rumors to be put out to undermine the Aes Sedai. And we later see Tom putting all of them together to reach the conclusion Balor wants them to reach. I don't remember... Does Tom put together that this is clearly a constructed story coming out of the children, or does he actually believe it as Balor intends people to?
He believes it's a constructed story, but he doesn't know. No, yeah, there's a point where he says, right, because he's in Altara, where the Children of the Light are, and he's like, enough people are saying it that it must come from the top, from Aelron, And Aeron doesn't say anything unless Niall approves of
Right.
it. So it must be coming from Niall. So yeah, he totally puts that together.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, Tom surely should be able to see what Balwer is doing, even if he doesn't know Balwer's name, obviously.
He assumes it's coming from Niall, which it pretty much is, yeah.
And then I also wanted to just touch on the fact that Niall is, as you said before, like Elida, very much just proof of how people who do not actively sign on to be evil can be really fucking evil. Just really evil. We really see with Niall thinking about how the light will grant him the peace of seeing the world united before he dies, and all of this stuff that really proves he is not a dark friend. He is not a dark friend. He believes he's on the side of the light.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet he is one of the most effective, terrible villains, and has been so for the last 40 years of the in-world timeline.
Right. That's the thing, that there are no dark friends in the beginning of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
These are all just awful people who are not dark friends.
Like, the Children of the Light are the kind of evil that exists even when the Dark One is fully sealed away and the Boar doesn't exist. The Children of the Light still exist. Or at least the potential for that kind of evil, you know?
And yeah, and I see that's the evil of Shadar Logoth, the evil of Fain.
Exactly the same kind of thing. And I think it's just really, Niall's POV gives us a sense of, like, you can think you're good and still absolutely be evil. And that's important to recognize. I think it's also interesting that Niall doesn't want to torture Morgase because mind games, basically. Not because torturing women is wrong, but because mind games are more effective than just torturing people.
Yeah. He also loves playing with her. Like, enjoys the game. You know, and he doesn't want the game to end.
Yeah.
Like, he goes and they play Stones every day, and they are pretty evenly matched. Like, they are...
They're flirty.
Right. Totally. I mean, not that it's romantic, because he's just so old. You know, he's like, if I was 30 years younger, yeah, but...
But she's still playing to those interests, and, like,
totally,
intellectual flirting is a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not a physical flirt.
Yeah.
It's a intellectual. And, like... And she doesn't know how good she has it until Niall dies, and then she's at the mercies of Asanawa.
I think that Niall's plan was totally going to work. I think that ultimately he was gonna come out on top of that long-term Stones game they were playing, and she was going to find herself way more entrenched than she thought she was. Like,
absolutely. I think the only issue that he didn't realize is that she's pretty much a worthless piece.
Right, for sure. And the Shan really fuck up the power dynamic between Andor and Amadisia. Like, it's just a lot that he couldn't anticipate. But he thinks he's as smart as Cookie in the jar, and he kind of is as far as the cookies that he can see.
Yeah, there's just a couple of assumptions he makes that, like, he's just blind in a few areas. And if he just didn't have those obvious blindnesses, he would be much more effective, right? And we see him be incredibly effective as a general... You know, well, we hear about him being incredibly effective as a general in his early life. He's one of the great captains, you know? He's. It's
a real shame that he wasn't able to join the side of the light for the last battle. He would have been an asset.
But, you know, one of the themes is that I think there's not a single person left over at the end of this story who was in power at the beginning of it, right? There's not a leader, there's not a king, there's not a queen left.
I think you're right.
Except Barrelane.
Yeah. Barrelane goes from vassal state to proper ruler. That's about it.
Most of the Borderlanders lose their rulers. You get... I guess maybe the Borderlanders don't. That's tough.
Most of the
so
Borderlanders do, though. In the last battle, a lot of them end up dying in the last battle.
Right. They fight the last battle, but they die during the last battle.
Right, and then there's, like, Lan, who, much like Barrelane, goes from having a thought of a kingdom to a real kingdom. So it's actually an upgrade.
And I mean, a lot of places maintain secession, right? Like, there is, like, someone else to take over. It's not like they all go into chaos, but there's very few rulers who, if in 998 you were ruling a kingdom, your outlook is not
yeah, your mortality is real fucking shit now.
Real short. Speaking of, let's go to Morgase.
Yes, let us move to Morgase. I was noticed that this chapter is called Plans, and, like, basically we have two POVs in which a whole lot of plans are being thought about. It's very much planning oriented.
And that's definitely having us going off on all sorts of tangents and talking about it, because it touches on so many things that are going to happen either the way they want them to or the way they don't want them to.
Yeah, we're only in the 250s of a book that is, 1,000 pages long almost. We're building up, people. And only in book, Jesus Christ, 6 of 14.
No, I looked at them on the shelf yesterday, and I was like, man, I feel like this podcast has been going forever, but there's still so much left. Because I was just thinking about, like, oh, yeah, me and Patrick did so much of it together, and I'm like, well, yeah, but if I do the whole series, he'll only have been on it for, like, the first, like, quarter.
Yeah, quarter to third, depending on how the action scenes blaze by or not.
Right. So I had that thought yesterday. I was like, damn, there is so much Wheel of Time.
Yeah. It's, most of the podcasts that I listen to for Wheel of Time at some point have had a moment of just like, we signed up for what now?
I had that yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the slog is not going to be condensed.
Oh, no.
The way we, like, the stuff we've done is we are digging into it more, because we have to, all those little interactions, we have to go into the backstory and figure out why the interaction happened and what the various characters were feeling and why they had that interaction. There's so much going on in the background during the slog that it's going to take us so much longer to explain it. So we may have to, like, the slog may actually take us even longer.
Totally.
Because I may have to, like, split those. We're already talking for, like, hours about... This is a short chapter.
Yeah.
This is a short chapter.
There are no short chapters when you let me into the...
this is going to be... Yes, well...
yeah. But I do think the action sections will go faster, because it's like... And then the action scene happens.
Right. And we've talked about how, like, when we're in somebody's head talking about plans and ideas, those are way longer episodes, because there's so much... more possibilities and things to go into. When it's action, it's like this happened and this happened and this happened.
Yeah, like the last battle
was cool.
is gonna be, like, it'll be a normal thing. The slog is gonna be like, good lord, will you guys turn the damn page already?
Seriously, half an hour on that sentence? A whole half hour?
Very much so. Very much so.
Morgase wondered whether she was like the falcon, too proud and too determined to realize when she had latched on to a prize too heavy for her wings to support. She tried to make her gloved hands loosen their grip on her reins. Her wide-brimmed white hat with its long white plumes provided a little protection from the unrelenting sun, but sweat beaded on her face. In a riding dress of green silk embroidered in gold, she did not look a prisoner. That dress is green.
Oh, it totally is. All green dresses are dark friend alerts. There's no dark friends here.
Speaking of, and we are getting to a dark friend. Pater is a dark friend.
Oh, right, there is a dark friend here.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
He was the dark friend from book 1 with Matt and Rand.
Four Kings in Shadow.
Mm-hmm. You'll notice his nose is crooked because Rand broke it.
Yeah, Four Kings? Market Sharon. It was Market Sharon where Pater was. It was Four Kings in Shadow is the chapter where we learn about it. It's that whole folded in timeline flashback thing.
Right. That's such a hard little segment to follow.
Ugh.
Yeah. Deliberately.
Yeah.
I think that was the fun part to discover. I always thought, I was like, why did he write this so bad? And I was like, oh, because Rand's having issues.
When you guys pulled that up, I got way less annoyed with RJ.
Yeah,
you guys
me
pointed
too.
that out.
Once I figured it out.
So yeah, we've got Morgase having the most gilded cage ever.
She's out hawking with her retinue.
Yeah, she's got a whole attendance, she's got musicians, she's got snacks, she's got everything she needs. And she's sitting there wondering if she's too proud. Spoilers, yes, Morgase. Yes, you are too proud. Way too fucking proud.
Here's my question. With all these people around her, I guess no one believes that she's still alive? Is it just, I think that the word gets out and just no one believes that she's there?
Well, think about it later. She thinks about how most of these ladies would be happy to serve her, but they don't like having to stay at the Fortress of the Light. So I'm thinking control of information by having her entire retinue confined to the premises.
Oh, someone tells Elaine that her mother is with the Children of the Light, and she laughs at them.
That would be Jacob Carradine in Ebudar.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And she gets really fucking pissed about it.
Yeah, she's like, no way, my mother would never go to them. And
yeah,
it's
she's like, how about you go fuck yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, she says my mother would never do that. And it's like, oh, God, girl, she's already run away from the White Cloaks. That's how much she did that.
The Children of the Light and the Morgase family tend not to believe each other a lot. I mean,
no.
There's some bad blood there. Galad cutting off Valda's head for killing his mother, who's still alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of miscommunication around Morgase and the White Cloaks involving her children. It gets really messy really fast. So I'm thinking in this whole description of all of the musicians and waiters and hawk handlers and everything, it's very much like the panning shot scenes of like a period drama set around like Henry VIII and his wives, you know? It's very Elizabethan Tudor, like, you know, really nice fabric and really nice like music and all like that. That's the energy I get from this scene.
I was watching Picnic at Hanging Rock with Madeline Madden because she's Gwen. Yes and no.
Okay.
It's trippy. It's a little bit like Twin Peaks.
Which I also haven't watched, but I've heard good things about.
Yeah, it's like a period Twin Peaks.
I like period pieces. When's it set?
1900.
Ooh, that is a good period. Costumes.
In Australia. Right, because it was an Australian novel about a local legend.
Right, I've read brief little snippets about it, but...
And apparently it was a myth, but enough people, it's like so popular that a bunch of people thought it was based on a true story. Because it just was so popular. It was part of popular culture in Australia, which is something, you know, I don't know about, but yeah.
Gotcha.
No, it's I'll admit it was fun to watch. It's weird. And I'm not a big fan of period pieces, so that kind of took me out. So yeah, I like the weirdness, but the period piece made me like, okay, enough of the like men in suits and women in dresses being like, oh.
I love well-costumed period pieces.
Then you will very much enjoy Picnic at Hanging Rock.
My theater kid might be showing. Is Madeline good in it?
Yes, very much so. She's not in it a lot because she gets kidnapped, so she's mostly in flashbacks.
Gotcha.
And I honestly, I have 2 episodes in, and there's 6 episodes, so I haven't seen the rest. So I'm in the process of watching it. But it's because it's a period piece, I'm not totally into it, because I'm just like, I'm watching for Madeline, and she's not in the episode, so I'm like, okay.
All right, guys, don't worry. I'll get it. I'll get a full report.
Yeah, I want a report from someone who doesn't hate period pieces.
Yeah, and the landscapes, because, oh my god, Australia is like, nah, for filming. Okay, yeah.
Oh, the imagery is beautiful, like, the clothing is gorgeous, the colors are vibrant as fuck. You really go between this, like, it's very surreal, these super vibrant colors. And it's got Marjorie Tyrell from Game of Thrones in it.
Natalie Dormer?
Natalie Dormer. She's the mistress. Yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of like Ellen Page for me. I'll just watch anything that she's in, just on basis of cheekbones.
And she's fantastic in it. She's absolutely fantastic. In a lot of ways, she was almost too good. She kind of stole the show a little bit. The book was more about the girls, and people were like, this is kind of like, it's too much about her. But I'm like, yeah, but it's Natalie Dormer. Like,
what are you gonna do? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You know. So.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
What I took away from it is that when Madeline Madden is in a room, she dominates it.
Oh, that's so
even when she's standing in the background.
I'm like literally writing myself a sticky note. Watch Picnic at Hanging Rock. I'm gonna remember what that acronym means.
And her reactions. You know, I was watching her reactions to the other actors because she doesn't have a whole lot of lines herself, but she's reacting a lot, and that was amazing. So it makes me so excited to have her as Egwene.
This is exciting. Like, I don't usually like hunt actors down to like study their stuff because I want to see their own things, but I'm also like so hungry to see these characters. I will find them anywhere I can.
No, and what I've been doing is watching their stuff with them in mind for the character, and it's helped me change my mental image of what the characters look like, so when they appear on screen, I'm not going to be like, that's not the Rand I expected. You know, I really do have... I have Yosha's face in my head for Rand, you know?
Yeah.
I have Madeline's face in my head for Egwene. I'm still working on Nynaeve. I'll be honest, like, my picture of Nynaeve was a lot different. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still working on that transition. But Perrin I've got, Rand I've got,
Barney
I've got,
discovering social media recently has really cemented him as Matt for me.
Oh, yeah. Barney's been harder for me as well, because I picture him clean-shaven, and he's got that beard that it's throwing me off. If I saw him clean-shaven, I think I'd be more into him being Matt.
Yeah, no, him discovering all the social media platforms in the last 4 days or so has been very Matt of him.
He's been spilling a lot of beans. It's been fun. Go check out his Instagram. There's a lot of good pictures on there of the cast. So that's really great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so curious about the styling, and like all the boys appear to have beards in all the photos. So it appears that they're like, because they're on the road, I would assume that they're scruffy for most of the first season.
Don't have clean-shaven people sleeping out of backpacks on the road. Please,
right, exactly.
Please.
You know, like, yeah, that would be really nice if you had some scruff, right? Like,
yeah. Back to the story. She talks to one guard named Norwin. This is his one and only scene. He doesn't show up again. Nothing about him happens. She never gets anywhere with cracking his facade. He's just a way for her to keep herself occupied, basically. Same thing with the ladies. She tries to get them on her side, and it's just something for her to do. It doesn't ever help.
Well, because she's trying to engineer her escape, and like we're spending all this time expecting, you know, Jordan's building us up to expect this escape and whole thing with her, and then he's like, nope, Sean Chan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do X Sean Chan.
Right, and so I think all this is sort of built up to make us expect her escape, and then he just fucking cuts our legs out under us by changing everything. He kills Niall, which we don't expect, and he brings in the Sean Chan, which changes everything about the area. And
same with killing Pater. Like, really builds you up to think that Pater's going to be important. Even if you recognize him as a Dark Friend, you expect that to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't. And it's like, I think he's really trying to lull you into feeling like you're Morgase. So that way when the rug gets pulled out from under her, it gets pulled out from under you.
I think that Lord of Chaos is the book of anticipation.
You better leave that fucking gap in.
Because we're anticipating Nynaeve. Like, he builds up to Nynaeve curing, stilling. He builds up to Morgase escaping. He builds up to Rand being... There's, like, the thing about Lord of Chaos that makes it such a good book is he spends the entire first half cranking up that tension. And it is so tense when shit starts going down.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that I think a lot of other books, there's action in the beginning, or it's slow in the beginning. Lord of Chaos does such a good job of just making you anticipate. You keep, like you said, you thought that this was the chapter where Pedro Niall gets stabbed, but it's the next one. And I do that with Nynaeve and the healing of stilling all the time, where I'm like, is it this chapter? Oh no, it's the next one. Oh, is it this one? No, it's the next one. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing that in almost every chapter in this book on the reread. I'm being like, wait, when does that really exciting thing happen?
Right.
You know, there's meetings, there's a bunch of Aes Sedai meeting with Rand, and I'm like, wait, which meeting does he get kidnapped in? Is it going to happen on this one? And so because there's these repetitions of meetings and events, and this unexpected thing at the end, there's so much tension in these chapters that I'm feeling right now, obviously.
Yeah, and it's amazing because it works on rereads. You know what's going to happen next, but do you?
There's some cyclical nature to these meetings, so that you're like, wait, am I starting out the first, second, or third meeting? And does he die in the second one or the third one? Shit.
And the timeline of when does information hit, and how long do people have to decide on it and make the decisions that you end up wanting to yell at them about later? Like, sometimes those things happen really close together, and it doesn't feel like it because this really narrow chapter of something totally different happened in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those ones where, again, podcast I was listening to earlier today, first time reader, being like, how do we go for another 8 books? How do you keep it going? And yet we know as rereaders, it totally bangs for the next 8 books. No problem.
Because there's so much detail to get through all that detail, you have to have 8 books. Like,
mm-hmm.
But I remember like when, gosh, even about this time, because I remember when Agenor and Belthamel came back. I was like, Jordan, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, what? You're bringing back already dead? Like,
can you do that?
Yeah. Because, at the time, I expected trilogies. I expected, like, that was the end of book 5, and I was like, if this is going to end on book 6, how can you bring back Forsaken?
Yeah.
Little did I know at the time, like, because at the time, because that you expected a book was amazing, a trilogy was rare, something longer than that was unheard of.
Yeah, like get out of here.
And the only reason trilogies were existing was because of Tolkien, and Lord of the Rings was a trilogy.
Right? Yeah, it's a standard. Jordan's like, I'm gonna build tension for a trilogy. How about that?
Right. And, okay, of the slog, Daviko brings up a point. Crossroads of Twilight is very hard. And I will agree with you on that. But I think it's entirely because of the split in the books. If you take Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight and move the cleansing from the end of Winter's Heart to the middle of Crossroads of Twilight, everything else makes sense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work as a book. You don't have that ending at Winter's Heart, and then you end up with the cleansing in the middle of the next book. And so that's like, it's just this awkward timing where, if Crossroads of Twilight and Winter's Heart were one giant book with a slightly different timeline, I think no one would complain.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I definitely would have shuffled that timeline to be more cross-cut into itself.
And this is something I've thought about, and I definitely want to do, is to actually skip the cleansing at the end of Winter's Heart and start Crossroads of Twilight and have everyone's reactions to the cleansing and then go back and do the cleansing.
Oh my god, I would be like doing the Aiel chapters in chronological order. Oh my god, yes! That would make it so much more spoilerifically awesome.
And I looked at it, and it's really just 5 chapters. It's one chunk that you can take out of the end of Winter's Heart and just move after, like, chapter 23 in Crossroads of Twilight.
Oh my god, I love that so much.
It's a super easy switch, yeah. So, like, I think that'll make it so much easier for people to follow, because the timeline, like we did with the Aiel, where we are going in chronological order rather than storytelling order.
It helps it because we are rereaders, because we know what's coming. We don't need authorial pacing. We need what we think makes sense pacing to get all the juicy bits out.
And it helps so much to be like, this happens after this, which happens after that. And you're like, oh, that's why, Like, just having things in those orders makes a difference. So.
Oh, I love that.
So I think that it's going to be, that's part of why I think the slog is going to be amazing, is I think we're going to do some restructuring, and I think we're going to get into some details that are going to surprise a lot of people, because they're there, but they're hard to find.
4-dimensional chess! I love it.
So we've wandered away from Morgase because I honestly have almost nothing to say about this section.
Yeah, we're like, Morgase tangent. Morgase tangent.
It is tangent, yeah. Because this conversation just doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. I do wonder if you have thoughts on what Pater Conal, the worst dark friend ever, is attempting to do. Not that it matters, because he dies before he can do it, but I do wonder what the point of him being there was, what that plot was supposed to be.
Oh, I imagine just trying to get her out of the White Cloak's hands and deliver her into Dark Friend's hands. Probably a Forsaken.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's just maybe just a Black Oddjaw person, or maybe just someone higher up in the hierarchy. He just thinks he can smuggle her out and deliver her to somebody evil.
Yeah.
Someone who wants... Maybe deliver her back to Ravine, although he's dead, so that doesn't...
Yeah. I do wonder if he was killed in front of her by sheer coincidence, or if it was some sort of, like, Dark Friend plot, subverting Dark Friend plot, foldy thing. Again, doesn't really matter, but, like, why do you think he died?
When they discover Pater and the Dark Friends, they're literally in a, like, devil-worshipping circle covered in blood, having killed somebody, right? Like, they got caught red-handed. This isn't a plot. This isn't the White Cloaks legitimately caught Dark Friends, like,
you
for
think?
once.
I always assumed it was just some bullshit.
Yeah, and like Asanawa, and we see Pedro Niles' internal monologue, and he never references it. He has no idea. Asanawa has no idea, and Morgase is being like, "Wow, they played me so well," and then she gives in, and Niles like, "Huh, I wonder why she did it now."
Yeah, no, I think
it's entirely because
I wondered if it was like a Dark Friend plot that overlapped another Dark Friend plot, right?
I think it was just the White Cloaks actually doing their job for once.
See, I just always assumed that the covered in blood and canting rhythm or canting rituals to the Dark Lord, I always assumed that that was like legitimately just a lie because like a witch trial, like, oh yeah, they were worshiping the devil and he told them to bake him 12 pies. And like, I mean, people were pressured into making those confessions for no reason once upon a time, right? Like, I always assumed that this was just literally, this is how the White Cloaks arrest people, is they just like have this like grab bag of random accusations. I never thought that it was actually a real thing.
My counter argument is they don't bother with that much detail. They just say you're a dark friend and kill you. Like, why would he make up details about the ritual? It doesn't make any...
But why would they do rituals to the Dark One? We never see that anywhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, because they're morons.
Well, right, but I mean, we never actually see, like, ritualized evil in, like, a witchcraft sort of way. Like, we never actually see Dark Friends doing that, aside from this one comment. So I always assumed it was some sort of... Someone figured out that Pater's uncle had a plot and was like, well, we can't have that because we have a different plot, so we're going to make sure that your agent gets taken out for some specious reason.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too complicated and I should just Occam's razor it back to what you're saying and just assume that they literally were covered in blood after murdering a baby and chanting a catechism to the Great Lord.
If I could find any clue in anybody's POV where they were like, they had a thought about it, or like, but no one seems to know about it. That's the problem. Like, it just appears to have been like, no one takes any credit. No one has any idea that they were helping Morgase. No one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, who would have set them up? Other Dark Friends off screen? That was
my
ridiculous.
Assumption. Just some shadowy, hand-wavy, other internal Dark Friend politicking shenaniganry.
For a second, wouldn't set them up. They just order them to do what they wanted.
Right. And nobody knows where Morgase is.
Right.
At the higher levels. So, we never see Dark Friends being ritualistic witchcraft workers, you know? Like...
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That does seem to be a unique thing. But we also just don't see a lot of Dark Friends gathered. Right? Like, we don't see how Sheriam gets initiated. We know they do dark and... This is the thing. We know they do dark and evil things and often kill people, right? Like, in ritual... So I'm willing to bet that... Yeah, so I'm going to counter with that, like, the initiation into being a Dark Friend is exactly this.
And I'm remembering Pavara's backstory. Her whole family was murdered in an uprising of Dark Friends. Yeah, I'm gonna... Yeah, that's... I think you're right. I think your counter's right. I think there's very, very little evidence for it, but it is there.
I'm ending the episode on you saying, I think you're right.
It happens once.
I'm holding on to it.
It's like the first dollar you get as a business, you're going to like frame it and put it on the wall. I just want to yell at Morgase for being mad at Rand for potentially creating refugees. And she's like, I will make him pay if he's doing this to Andor. And I'm like, first of all, you sound like your son. Second of all, how the fuck are you going to do that? He's the goddamn dragon and people are making decisions based on a 3,000-year-old prophecy. Why are you going to accuse him of that?
I like that you called her out as sounding just like her son, because I'm like, oh, that's where he gets it.
Yes! She's pulling a fucking Gawain on him on Andor's behalf. It's nonsense. Suck it, Trakans.
There's a certain pride in Camelin and Andor that it's theirs and theirs to protect.
Yeah.
Even when they're not there. It's like, okay, Gawain, if you want to go protect Andor and Elaine, go to Andor and Elaine.
Yeah.
Biggest problem with him. Right there.
It's this fucking stubbornness. Like, it is a Trakan trait. It's honestly Elaine's biggest flaw. And it's like, yeah, it's a Trakan thing. It's a fucking Trakan thing. It's hereditary.
And they call the Two Rivers folk stubborn. I think
know,
the Camelin ones are worse. Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean, we see the Two Rivers folk, like, changing constant. Like, they change a lot. They don't dig in their heels and, well, I'm no bloody noble, but, like, that's...
Yeah, Anderman, man. They're just really fucking stubborn. All the way.
You just said Anderman, man.
Anderman, man. I bet Ashara was absolutely a nightmare to work with.
The Anderman can. you talking about? It's amazing. I turn on recording, immediately my brain turns off.
Audio quality and how important it is in your brain.
Right, and how important it is for producing content that, you know, if a video has good audio, we'll stick with it, but if it has bad audio, we'll drop it. Whereas the reverse is not true.
Yeah, and like my warder the other day, he was talking with his IT committee peoples, and they were talking about, like, should we bring video on to their Zoom, or not to their Zoom calls, but to some other, like, communication thing. And it was like, well, if we can't guarantee that the synchronization is going to be perfect, then let's not even bother with video, because it will hurt people's brains way too much. We should just give them audio if we can't guarantee good synchronization.
Right. Oh, yeah, synchronization is key. That's, synchronization is what led to the production of, back when they first produced film, it used to be hand cranked, right? So you had all these variable speeds, and then it became impossible to match the audio up with the video. And apparently a study came out, and it was like, you really have to be spot on, and, like, you can't have any audio offset whatsoever. And that led to the automation of film reels and filming cameras away from the hand crank.
That makes a lot of sense.
But it wasn't because of the herky-jerky video. People didn't care about that. It was just, it was because of the sound synchronization.
Our brains can do some error corrections really well, and others not so much.
Speaking of all those herky-jerky, like, old videos, who's the filmmaker? He put together a bunch of World War I footage and corrected for the hand crank speed, like, frame by frame.
I have no idea. I'm going to assume Ken Burns, because that's the first name that came to mind, but I have no idea.
Someone put in a lot of time to take the old footage, colorize it, smooth it out, make it look good. And that was pretty impressive to watch, because it made, like, 1918 footage that always feels like it's from another planet look like it's happening around the corner.
Yeah. I watched a World War II colorized footage documentary that had the same sort of, like, oh, it feels so much more real when the greens are green. You know? It's just surreal.
When people are sort of, like, jerky when they're walking, it sort of dehumanizes them a little bit.
Robotic and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But then you switch over to this.
Yeah. Brains are funny.
Brains are real funny. And brains want to believe lies, as Omirna does in this chapter.
Very nice segue.
I'm getting pretty good at them. The theme of believing what you want to believe, no matter what damage it causes, is something that we can all relate to right now.
Yeah. I have strong emotions, therefore reality shall bend.
Oh, and one thing I'm saying, I've avoided a lot of politics in the previous podcasts, but I'm gonna be less careful about that these days, just because
it's 2020 and we're going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, and I have opinions, and you know what? They're on my mind, and if I don't talk about them, I'll have nothing to talk about, because we're all stuck at home watching the news. So that might come up more often than it usually would in the podcast, simply because of the time we live in.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?
I think you're right.